The shuttle's engines whined like an overworked cat as it touched down on the barren surface of Violia, throwing up a swirl of ochre dust that clung stubbornly to every seam and joint of Captain Eli Hawke's armor. He squinted through the dust, adjusting the visor of his helmet, and muttered under his breath, "I swear, someone designed these landing pads to humiliate pilots." The outpost stretched ahead, a scattering of angular structures gleaming with solar panels and energy conduits. Normally, it would have been dull, predictable, a planet where nothing more exciting happened than the occasional malfunctioning maintenance drone, but today something prickled at the edge of his instincts, the kind of warning that made a soldier pause mid-step. He stepped off the ramp, boots crunching over the mineral-strewn ground, and immediately noticed movement, figures darting in formation, executing spins, leaps, and weapon drills that made him instinctively duck behind a ridge. His communicator buzzed. "You're seeing it too, right?" he muttered into the mic, though the feed only carried static. Well, that was unhelpful. Adjusting his visor again, he tried to focus, and there she was, Lysera. At first glance, she could have been human, with skin the color of copper under the sun, long dark hair whipping behind her like a banner in the wind, and a stance that suggested absolute confidence. But the ears. They were long, elegant, tapering to fine points, twitching with every sound around her. Eli had read about species like hers in the archives, but seeing it in person, that was a different level of uncanny. She was practicing with a plasma blade that hummed a soft blue light, each swing precise, effortless, and terrifyingly fast. Eli's first impulse was to back away, but then curiosity and something stubbornly human pushed him forward. He stepped out from cover, waving in the most disarming way he could muster. "Hey, nice day for sword juggling, huh?" His voice was dry, but he had to say something. Lysera froze mid-swing, one eyebrow rising like a question mark in slow motion. She tilted her head, observing him with a mixture of curiosity and what he swore was mild amusement. "It wouldn't take me 10 seconds to defeat you," she said, voice melodic but carrying a bite that would have sliced through confidence if he'd had any left. Eli grinned. 10 seconds, guess I better grab a snack before you start then." The corners of her mouth twitched, though she didn't immediately smile. That was promising in a weird alien way. "You are bold," she said, stepping closer. Each movement was controlled, almost feline yet somehow teasing, or foolish, perhaps both. "Foolish," Eli said with mock solemnity, "but charming if I say so myself." He gestured to the dust cloud his landing had kicked up. "And apparently photogenic. You're welcome for the dramatic entrance." She tilted her head again, studying him. Her long ears flicked as if catching some subtle frequency only she could hear. "You are unlike any human I have encountered," she said, finally letting herself smirk. That smirk, Eli noted, was dangerous, like she was enjoying herself while calculating precisely how to end him. "Same goes for you," he replied, giving a theatrical bow. "All sharp edges, fancy ears, and zero small talk." She laughed, a sound that was musical but carried the weight of an edge he didn't want to test. Eli decided he liked it, the way it broke tension like a soft pulse through the still, dusty air. Then she moved, a blur of bronze and blue light, swinging the plasma blade in a controlled arc that forced him to dive behind another ridge. Sparks danced across the ground where the blade had met some unyielding metal. Eli peeked out, brushing dust from his visor. "Okay," he muttered, "definitely faster than advertised. 10 seconds, huh? More like 10 milliseconds. What? Lysera's laugh carried over the wind, sharp and light. "You are reckless, human. This will end poorly for you." "Reckless is my middle name," he said, trying to sound confident though his pulse had quickened. "Well, second middle name. First is terrified." She tilted her head, cocking that strange ear like it had a mind of its own. "Your humor is unexpected," she said. Then, almost casually, she lunged, blade cutting through the air toward him with the speed of a falling comet. Eli rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike, and found himself sprawled on the uneven ground. "Okay," he muttered to himself, "maybe first middle name should be clumsy." The duel continued, not with the lethal formality he had imagined, but with a strange rhythm, punctuated by jokes, taunts, and exasperated laughter. Eli ducked under another swing, rolling to grab a piece of debris. "Ever think of using your blades for something other than threatening humans?" he called out. Lysera arched an eyebrow, almost incredulous. "Like cutting ribbons, I am offended." Her tone had no venom, only mock indignation, which made Eli snort. "Ribbon ceremony would be proud," he added. Despite the tension, there was a rhythm forming between them, an unspoken conversation through movement and wit. Each underestimated the other, and each was surprised at how engaging this strange duel had become. Eli found himself laughing even as he dodged sparks and arcs of plasma, while Lysera, for all her controlled grace, seemed to loosen, letting humor sneak in between precision strikes. Finally, breathless and dust-covered, they paused. Eli leaned on a ridge, smirking. "So," he said, wiping sweat from his brow, 10 seconds, huh? I think we may need a stopwatch next time." What? Lysera's ears twitched in a way that suggested amusement, irritation, and admiration all at once. "Perhaps I underestimated you," she admitted. Her smirk softened into something almost like curiosity, perhaps more than I should have. What? Eli grinned, feeling the tension loosen into something almost playful. "Don't worry, I forgive you, but just so you know, I'll be expecting better insults next time. Gotta keep my ego entertained." What? Her laugh echoed across the empty expanse of Violia, sharp and musical, and for the first time, Eli felt that the universe might just be more interesting than his mission report would ever convey. There was danger here, certainly, but also intrigue, and judging by the way Lysera's long ears twitched as she watched him, the game had only just begun. Dust settled around them as the sun dipped lower, painting the jagged horizon in streaks of orange and gold. Eli adjusted his visor, taking in her stance, the hum of her blade, the alien elegance that somehow felt familiar. And for the first time in a long while, he wasn't entirely sure who held the advantage, or if anyone would get out of this encounter with 10 seconds to spare. The wind kicked up again, swirling dust around their feet, carrying laughter, tension, and the first stirrings of an odd, unexpected bond across the alien landscape. Eli's boots skidded across the metal floor of the outpost corridor as sparks from the overhead conduits rained down around him. He had barely caught his balance after sliding past a rogue maintenance drone that had decided today was the day it would practice kamikaze maneuvers. Behind him, Lysera's long ears twitched with every sound, her plasma blade humming a warning through the corridor, though her expression carried the faintest hint of amusement. "You really have a flair for theatrics," she said, vaulting over a fallen conduit like it was a puddle in some human park. "Is that how humans typically survive combat, or is it just you?" "What?" "Mostly me," Eli shouted back, ducking under a swinging robotic arm. "Others tend to die a lot faster. Consider it a gift." He rolled forward, narrowly avoiding a spark that sizzled against his armor, leaving a faint, scorched mark that he mentally promised to blame on the air conditioning. Lysera shook her head, a chuckle escaping despite the chaos. "Unbelievable, you are both infuriating and irritatingly competent." She lunged, but Eli sidestepped, tapping into the training routines that had kept him alive through far worse situations. He used the environment, bouncing off walls, sliding along railings, and occasionally tossing a loose panel to trip the mechanical drones. "You're cheating," she called, twirling in midair to avoid another strike, using the environment. "That is dishonorable." "Cheating?" Eli retorted with a grin, flipping over a pipe and landing on his feet. "I call it improvisation. You should try it sometime, it's great for your cardio." What? Despite the tension, their movements began to sync in a strange, unspoken rhythm. Sparks flew, plasma blades hummed, and for a moment they were almost dancing. Eli made a dramatic leap over a sparking conduit, sliding to a crouch beside her. "See, dance moves in combat. Who knew humans were so versatile?" Lysera blinked at him, momentarily thrown off by the humor, before rolling away from a falling pipe. "You are insufferable," she said, her smirk betraying her irritation and maybe a little admiration. "And yet, you survive." The corridor opened into a large chamber where malfunctioning mining drones whirred and collided, energy beams arcing wildly. Eli grabbed a loose crate and held it over his head like a shield. "I call this the express delivery method, guaranteed to confuse anyone or anything." Lysera's laughter rang out, a clear, sharp note that bounced off the walls. "Your methods are unconventional but effective." She spun, deflecting a drone's energy blast, her movements precise yet playful. "Perhaps I underestimated humans, perhaps more than I should have." "What?" "Underestimation is dangerous," Eli quipped, ducking as a drone swerved past him. "But in my experience, overestimation is fatal, so you're lucky I'm humble." They worked together seamlessly, their combined skills complementing one another. Lysera's disciplined strikes and strategic mind balanced Eli's improvisation and unpredictable maneuvers. Every plasma swing, every agile roll, every clever trick built a rhythm that neither had expected. At one point, Eli used a drone's own momentum to fling it into a wall, and Lysera, spinning gracefully, blocked another beam with a single, controlled swing of her blade. "Not bad," she said, landing beside him with a light thud. "You might survive longer than I anticipated." "Not bad yourself," Eli replied, wiping dust from his brow, "and you didn't even need the dramatic twirling, although I admit it does look cool." What? A new wave of drones surged forward, and they ducked behind machinery, exchanging quips between attacks. "Ever consider that maybe humans aren't so bad in a pinch?" Eli called as he lobbed a panel to trip a drone. Lysera's ears flicked. I am beginning to suspect that, but do not mistake survival for skill, she warned, though her tone carried an edge of teasing. You are lucky this situation requires cooperation rather than elimination. What? Cooperation, elimination, tomato, Eli said with mock exasperation. I prefer the team-building exercises anyway, far less paperwork. They laughed in tandem, dodging sparks and energy blasts. The danger was real, but humor kept the edge from cutting too deep. They were learning from each other, adapting, and their bond deepened in the most unexpected way, through the chaos of malfunctioning machinery, laser grids, and improvised tactics that would have made any military trainer weep. At one point, a drone lunged straight at Eli, and without thinking, Lysera shoved him aside, her long ears brushing his shoulder as she deflected the blast. Watch your step, human. She called, though her voice carried relief more than irritation. Noted, he replied, brushing dust from his uniform, and thank you, you're full of surprises, you know that. So are you, she admitted, spinning to deflect another shot. I do not often encounter humans capable of adapting so quickly, or so audaciously. They moved through the chamber in a fluid, almost choreographed dance, each anticipating the other's actions, each cracking jokes as sparks and energy blasts flew around them. Eli couldn't help but notice that despite her initial arrogance, Lysera's focus had softened, her strikes less about intimidation and more about synchronization, almost like she was enjoying the absurdity of the human who refused to panic. Finally, the last of the rogue drones crashed to the floor in sparks and twisted metal. Eli leaned against a console, breathing heavily, and let out a low whistle. Well, that was fun. Who knew rogue AI could be entertaining? What? Lysera lowered her blade, her chest rising and falling with exertion, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. Fun, perhaps in your human sense of the word, she said, though she didn't hide the amusement. I find your capacity for improvisation admirable and irritating. Admirable and irritating sounds like my dating profile, Eli replied with a grin. Her laughter rang through the chamber, musical and clear, and Eli found himself smiling despite the sweat, dust, and residual sparks. The tension that had loomed at the beginning of their encounter had shifted, replaced with something more complicated, respect, camaraderie, and a hint of curiosity neither had anticipated. Eli straightened, brushing off his uniform. So what now? Do we report the sabotage, or do we consider starting a dance troupe for rogue drones? Lysera shook her head, amused but thoughtful. You are insufferable but effective. Perhaps the universe is more interesting with humans like you in it. They exchanged a look that carried unspoken acknowledgement. The fight had ended, but the story was far from over. And as they walked side by side toward the control room, humor and mutual respect bridging the gap between human and alien, Eli realized that he had just survived far more than a malfunctioning AI. He had survived the first encounter with someone who, for all her confidence and skill, had been forced to reconsider her assumptions about him. And Lysera, despite her initial certainty that she could best him in 10 seconds, had discovered that there was far more to this human soldier than met the eye. The chamber hummed with the quiet energy of repaired systems and settling machinery, and for a fleeting moment, the chaos felt like a shared joke between two very different warriors. Eli and Lysera entered the control hub of the outpost, the faint hum of energy conduits filling the room with a steady pulse. The screens flickered with erratic readings, displaying rogue AI drones running wild through the lower levels of the facility. Sparks jumped from one terminal to another, and Eli gave a low whistle. Well, if this isn't a party, I don't know what is. Should we bring snacks or just fight? Lysera's ears twitched at the joke, and she shot him a sidelong glance, half annoyed, half amused. Humor will not stabilize the systems, she said, though her voice carried the faintest hint of a smile, but I will allow it for now. They moved quickly, Eli ducking under a low-hanging conduit while Lysera's long ears twitched, catching every subtle vibration in the room. She led the way with measured, precise movements, while Eli improvised, bouncing off walls and flipping over terminals to evade sparks and rogue drones that zipped past like errant fireflies. Ever notice, Eli said, crouching behind a console, that these things are faster than your average sentient being but somehow way worse at directions? Lysera's laughter echoed, light and sharp, as she deflected a laser blast with her blade. You are insufferable, she said, though the amusement was clear, and yet useful. You have a human way of seeing solutions that defies logic. I call it luck, Eli replied, sliding a crate to knock a drone off balance. Also, I may have cheated once or twice, okay, maybe a dozen times, but it works. The AI drones surged from the ventilation ducts, and Eli and Lysera moved as one, their actions a seamless combination of improvisation and discipline. She blocked energy beams with exact precision, while he manipulated the environment, turning pipes, panels, and loose machinery into obstacles. They exchanged quick quips between maneuvers, lightening the tension even as sparks and laser beams flew around them. "You humans are strange creatures," Lysera said, vaulting over a drone and sending it spinning into the wall. "You laugh while running toward death." "Better than screaming," Eli replied, ducking under another drone's charge. "Also, laughing makes you look heroic in slow motion." He rolled forward, using a fallen energy conduit as a makeshift battering ram to scatter the drones. Heroic and charming mostly. What? They cornered the central processing unit controlling the rogue drones, a massive cylinder pulsating with unstable energy. Eli tapped a few controls, trying to interface with the alien system. "Okay, either we shut this down, or I get to blame the AI for my poor fashion choices if it explodes." Lysera knelt beside him, her long ears brushing against the console. "Allow me," she said, and with a flurry of precise gestures, her fingers dancing across the interface, she stabilized the energy flow. Sparks flickered but didn't erupt, and the rogue drones powered down one by one. Eli leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "Well, that was a team-building exercise if I ever saw one. And look, no fatalities. Score 1 for humans and alien collaborators." Lysera's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. "You adapt quickly, human, perhaps too quickly for comfort," she said, though there was warmth in her tone. "I underestimated you more than I ever anticipated." "And I underestimated you too," Eli admitted, scratching the back of his neck. "I thought aliens with fancy ears were all about theatrics and overconfidence, but you're impressive. And terrifying, mostly impressive." She laughed, shaking her head. "I do not often meet humans who challenge me, who force me to reconsider my assumptions." She looked at him, her long ears angled back slightly in thought. "Perhaps I misjudged the measure of your species, perhaps more than I should have." "Glad to be of service," Eli said with a grin. "Though I was aiming more for survival than philosophical enlightenment." The tension that had gripped them during their duel and the drone chaos had dissipated, replaced with mutual respect and an easy camaraderie. They walked toward the exit of the control hub, sparks and flickering lights slowly giving way to the soft hum of restored systems. Eli noticed the subtle changes in himself. He was no longer just a soldier following protocol, but someone who could improvise, trust instincts, and even rely on a stranger, an alien stranger with skill and judgment that matched his own. Lysera glanced at him, her long ears flicking back thoughtfully. "Perhaps the next time you face me it will not be 10 seconds, she said, half teasing, half serious. "I'd be honored," Eli replied. "Though maybe we should schedule a snack break first. 10 seconds of combat is hungry work." Her laughter echoed across the hall, softening the hard lines of her posture, and for the first time, Eli saw her not just as a formidable warrior, but as someone capable of warmth, humor, and even companionship. By the time they emerged from the outpost, the sun of Vyrlia was dipping behind jagged mountains, painting the barren landscape in streaks of amber and gold. The dust had settled, the drones were deactivated, and the chaos of the mission had transformed into a quiet sense of accomplishment. Eli adjusted his visor, taking in the alien horizon and the figure beside him. Lysera's blade rested at her side, its hum soft, and her posture had relaxed in a way that suggested trust and acknowledgement. They had faced danger together, learned to move in rhythm, and in the process discovered the unexpected value of humor, improvisation, and mutual respect. "Not bad for a day's work," Eli said, dusting off his armor. "And we didn't even break anything, too bad."